So the bushings that came or that were in my car are definitely wore out. They have about 400,000 kilometers on them. I've got the Supra in the shop right now. I'm going to go ahead and crack all the wheel lugs free, and then jack the car up and take the brake calipers off, and then start to undo the control arms. So I'll turn the camera back on when I have the wheels off, the car up, and the control arms starting to be worked on. Okay, so I've got the car all jacked up now. Got some blocks holding up the jacked up automobile. Now that is pretty safe to me, I believe. I've given it the shake test, but my floor is made of wood and the floor does flex. I have no idea what's under there, so I try not to do too much without extra bracing underneath the car or underneath the planks. I've been working on cars in this garage for about 5 years now with, knock on wood, no issue. Back to the meat and potatoes of everything. So basically what I got here is my bushings, my suspension bushings. The back one here is, you probably can see, is practically completely wore out. So I believe those are 24 millimeter nuts and bolts, and I think they can be a pain to get out of there. I hope they don't get damaged, but I'm pretty sure they're all free because I've already done adjustments on my camber and whatnot. So the car still has a pretty decent amount of negative camber. And I'm getting new tires put on today. But so what you're going to have to do is get this lower control arm off. I'm probably going to leave the ball joint attached right there. So I need to undo the sway bar, the tie rod, the brake caliper, the upper ball joint thing nut, and then I think the upper control arm, I believe I have bushings for it in the kit. These ones aren't bad necessarily, but while I'm doing it, I will take them off. And I believe those are 19 millimeters, and it comes out straight through. Sometimes you have to remove this piece of inner fender well and your washer bottle, but I've been able to get it out through up there. So I'm going to get started on all this. I don't think you really want to see the work that's going into the start of it. The rest I'll show you after, and I got to check my brakes on this side because I noticed the left is pulling harder than the right, and these are the Brembo Mercedes big brake kit modification, so I don't know what's going on in there. And I've got some new pads for it. The rotors look pretty good. So anyway, basically it's a systematic taking everything apart to get that control arm off. And then possibly this one too, when I look and see what's in my kit. Taking about 10 minutes to do this, but there you go. There's your tie rod end undone. You can, usually I just leave the nut threaded on flush with the, hold on, there you go, with the end of the bolt there, and then I just dead blow it with the ball peen hammer of some sort. Then I took off the brake caliper mounting tabs to get the brake line free. I have this here sway bar link. I ended up having to grip it on there with a pair of pliers, but I do believe there's a hex bolt in the end that you can put an Allen key on to hold it steady so you can pull it out. You need to undo the bottom piece of the shock, lower ball joint. I got the top one undone. I used a dead blow hammer or a ball peen hammer to hit it here to get that to undo without damaging the boot. Otherwise, you can use your pickle fork. So then I got the bottom one still to do, and then the spindle should come right off, and then next I have the 2 bolts to do, so I'll keep you posted. Looks like we hit a little bit of a roadblock here. So I've got ball joint done, lower ball joint undone, tie rod off, linkage undone, shock undone, control arm is hanging down here. I haven't started on the front bolt for the camber adjustment, but I think the rear bolt for the toe adjustment is seized in there. I've had a breaker bar on it. I didn't realize that it was a toe adjustment bolt, so I may have fucked something up in there, but not a big deal, maybe. So I've put a bar on it. I'm gonna maybe add some heat to it. Chances are when you do this, you should probably have brand new bolts ready to go. I do not, so I need to be careful and try and get these out without causing any serious damage. So wish me luck. But those are the last two bolts to hold the control arm on. So hopefully I get it out in the next hour here. I'm going to try and hit the back of that bolt with a hammer on the nut, threaded flush with the bolt, kind of like that there. So that, come on, focus, you bastard. Oh yeah, well anyway, so that I don't damage any threads. That's kind of the plan, so hopefully it'll work. So the rear bolt is really giving me a hard time. I'm just about to take the grinder and cut it. There's not enough room to get the grinder in there. Otherwise I'll be using the saber saw with the metal blade on it, but I don't know if that'll even work because it should probably be a hardened steel bolt. So first, before I go and do that, I am going to soak it with some penetrating oil that I went and picked up. So stuff was like 14 bucks a can, so hopefully it will creep in there like it says, deep creep. So I'm going to soak this side, go and take apart the other side, and hope for the best. Couple things to note here. Your 30-year-old Supra lower control arm will probably be seized in, the bushings that is. So what I found very helpful for me was I used my Sawzall and this Diablo blade. It was $21. The first half of the blade I used to cut the back bolt and half of the second bolt. Then I used my zip wheel. To cut the blade in half, thus giving myself a 4 or 5 inch blade there to cut the front two bolts. So that's ready to be burned out. If you have a press, you probably could press it out. I'm just going to do what I saw online and burn it out probably in my driveway. I'm not sure if I want to change the upper ones yet. I might just keep them for now because these ones are pretty tight, the OEM Toyota ones. Plus I'm getting tired of messing around with this for this weekend. One thing to note, here's your Toyota bolt with its camber adjustment. So this one here goes on the back onto that. This one here goes onto the back side. This one here has a splined, hard to see. You can see it actually through it right there. It's splined so that the washer can do what it's got to do to get your camber negative or positive. Since I have an obscene amount of negative camber for my liking, I'm just going to shove the fucking things in there as far as I can and then lock them down. So I don't know if I'm going to use the camber adjustment bolts or nuts or washers or any of this shit at all. I might just use the hardware that I have, because I've got this bolt here. It's slightly longer, not really going to make a difference. The shank here is about the same size and the same diameter as this bolt. So I will make sure though when I put this together that I use some Never Sees back there at the edge of my workbench and turn that, so hopefully, I don't think I'll ever take it apart again, because, like, I mean, how long am I going to have the Supra? I've already had it for a decade. I'll drive it till the wheels fall off, I guess, but yeah, that's kind of the plan. So, got a box of bushings here. Alright, so here's your energy suspension bushing kit. Like I showed you before, it's got the rubbers that go into the holes. You can put a little lube on the outside and drive those in. You don't really want these to move in the holes that they're in. And then those little grooves there are for the lube that goes around this bushing. So it comes with a semi-detailed instruction kit on how to do it. Pretty simple. Use the socket to drift the other bushings out. I didn't get to go through the installation procedure of the rubber bushings and the sleeve that the bolt goes through. It was rather simple. Once you pressed out, so you can either use a press to press this bushing out, or you can use a hammer and a large socket of the same diameter of this outside ring. I use a large socket and drifted it out with a hammer. So it shouldn't be that hard for you, considering your car hopefully hasn't seen winter like mine. Now, the bolts were seized in there. I only got one free, and those are Toyota bolts. They are around 200 bucks Canadian for all 4 bolts with eccentric washers, but you can get a hardened grip, what size it is. So the only thing it's missing is the flat spot. Let's see. See, this is the one this is a bolt that's cut off, and it's got a flat spot for the eccentric washer to go on. The one side is knurled, I believe, or splined, and the other side is just a washer that goes on. You can see it's kind of a semicircle there. I don't know if you necessarily need these. My car is so low that I have to essentially put the camber all the way in as far as possible to get the wheel to ride as straight as possible, and then I still have negative camber. So anyway, I just got to tack these bolts, the camber plate, to the bolt to go through the frame of the vehicle, and then I'll turn it this way, no, that way, getting my wheels as straight up as possible. I'm considering doing an experiment to flatten out this and then chase the thread. That way I can have the adjustment on both sides of the bolt and the threads, so when I turn it, the full piece moves this way or that way. But I'm not too sure about that. Now, when it comes to the assembly of the polyurethane bushings, I didn't use any lube in between the bushing and the sleeve, or the cylinder, but there's grooves in the bushing for that grease that you can see gooping out of there, which is actually comes with your bushings kit. So it should be pretty simple. Hopefully you don't have as much trouble as I did with mine, and hopefully your assembly goes well as well. So I'll do one side, and then I'll post a video of the other, and hopefully it all goes nice and smooth. Probably can't see that very well. But right there, I ground a flat spot in this bolt, and then I chased it. So I backed the nut up to the top of the threads, ground a flat spot, and then chased it with the nut, taking it off to clean up the threads. So technically, my welded eccentric washers, I could flatten that if I have enough threads sticking out past the shank there, that the flat spot on the adjustment washer will sit. I wouldn't try to chase it on forward, so I don't know if I'm going to do that, but that might be a solution for your thing. Otherwise, you could just drill those out round. But I'm going to go ahead and put these back on the car and see what I can come up with. Okay, so you can see that's the flat spot that this washer now fits over. I used a angle grinder with a grinding wheel. You can use your bench grinder there if you really want, but the way that I got these, so that hole right there has to line up with the other hole on the other end. So I just used the vise to keep it as straight as possible. It won't be perfect, but it's not $200 or $400. So basically assembly, like many things, is reverse the installation. So there you go. There's your lower control arm with the bolt in there. It's kind of hard to see in the dark. Now, like I said, that is just a regular hardened steel bolt that's the same diameter. So use your use your caliper tool here to check your bolt thickness to the OEM Toyota bolt, The OEM Toyota belt is like 0.8 or 0.2 millimeters bigger. I don't think it's going to make any difference. I will let you know though. So like I said, pretty straightforward. I'm going to do the top bushings after I rework my 2 upper control arms there. I've got an extra set that I'm thinking of cutting and tapping and making them so they're adjustable. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Let me know in the comments what you think, and I'll take your advice maybe.